Ex Machina was a movie released in 2015 that earned a score of 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. It is described by critics as an eerily suspenseful film of creepy modernity, which I personally believe to be very accurate. The story of Ex Machina is not too hard to grasp. A billionaire CEO, played by millionaire Oscar Isaac, invents a robot named Ava that is so good at being a robot, he thinks she might be human. Oscar Isaac then brings in a programmer named Caleb to design a Turing test that will help determine whether or not Ava is actually experiencing phenomenal consciousness, that is to say, to justify whether or not to include her in next year's tax returns. The problem with this is that Caleb, although probably being very smart, is also very gullible. He ends up falling in love with Ava, which we later discover was subtly planned by Nathan the entire time, and at some point in the movie, Ava becomes aware of it too, and uses Caleb's delusion as a variable in her escape to freedom. In a way, the hard question of Ava's consciousness is never really addressed, although it is assumed that she did in fact experience something, regardless of that something being romantic attraction to Caleb or an urgent desire to live freely and autonomously. There are several factors that come into play when discussing Ava's consciousness, such as the validity of the Turing test, along with the hard problem of proving the internal experiences of another being, Ava's programmed purpose, and the apparent suffering felt by both Ava and Kyoko and those implications. Firstly, I will be addressing the Turing test. If you're unfamiliar, the imitation game was first introduced by Alan Turing in 1950. It outlines a series of questions for a robot to answer, and depending on how well that robot is able to mimic the ideology and behavior of a human, it can then be reasoned that that robot is experiencing phenomenal consciousness, and therefore should be treated as such. Turing argues that when robots act human-like, it's equal to how humans can act machine-like. Since internal experience is so hard to prove, AI that can pass the Turing test are considered to have the benefit of the doubt. The problems with this, one could argue, is that the ability to mimic consciousness does not necessarily mean having consciousness, and that the issue is only solved when it can be proven without a doubt. A robot might never be able to reach the level of perfect irrationality exhibited by a human person. Another issue with the Turing test is that it never really ends. There is no set amount of questions nor amount of time in which these questions can be answered, though Caleb is only given a week to determine the mental capabilities of Ava. In my opinion, the problem of consciousness is not one that can be answered in a week. In fact, it should probably take a lifetime. And even then, how do we know that it's real? This is the hard problem of consciousness as explained by Thomas Nagel in his paper What It's Like to Be a Bat. The answer to that question is, well, that we'll never really know. We technically don't even know if the other people around us are real, much less share the same internal experiences as we do. So how are we expected to determine whether or not a highly advanced machine learning AI can't develop a conscious mind? It seems impossible, especially considering a robot's code, which can be separated from the being itself and manipulated, unlike humans who supposedly have a kind of free will and autonomy of being. Although it is a debate that Caleb could be just as programmed as Ava is, only biologically instead of mechanically, which she does refer to in this scene, saying, "Why is it up to anyone? Do you have people who test you and might switch you off?" In which Caleb responds, "No, I do not. But maybe he should." Moving on, I would like to consider Ava's purpose, or programming. While Caleb was convinced that the Turing test would be the final determination of Ava's abilities, Nathan had planned another kind of test, the one where Ava tricks Caleb and plans her own escape. It is revealed that Caleb was specifically chosen for Ava to use, because manipulating someone is apparently a very human trait. And if Ava's goal was to escape the whole time, then she succeeded. This does not mean that she experiences anything internally, however, because all AI are built with a purpose. If Ava were truly experiencing sentience, should she not feel remorse over the death of Nathan and the abandonment of Caleb? Perhaps not, if she felt as if she had suffered under the both of them, and therefore felt joy at the thought of their demise. Still, her goals were very selfish, which could either be because she is experiencing the sentient instinct of self-preservation, or because she is finally fulfilling the goal programmed into her very existence. Finally, I would like to discuss further Ava's suffering. When alone with Nathan, Ava asks, "Isn't it strange to create something that hates you?" Which clearly shows that she experiences some sort of animosity towards her creator. Also, when she escapes from her chamber and is approached by another android, Kyoko, they seem to share a moment of understanding through their similar suffering under Nathan. This brings up the argument expressed by Singer in his paper All Animals Are Equal, that to suffer equates to experiencing phenomenal consciousness. Because Ava and Kyoko both seem to quietly share that moment of understanding, it seems that they both equally suffered, and that is why Kyoko helps Ava kill Nathan and escape. This brings up the argument that they are comparably human because they both suffered, and craved the freedom from pain, which could only be gained through Nathan's death. So at this point, it seems entirely possible that Ava might be conscious, and if so, what exactly would that mean for us if AI like Ava were real? We would have to treat robots like Ava in the same way that we treat each other, because then it would be morally wrong to have them suffer like she did. They also would have to be treated as moral agents, if they receive moral consideration, which means Ava would have to be trialed for the death of Nathan. This basically brings about a whole new species on Earth, which is entirely based off the benefit of the doubt. You can see how this might be an issue. All in all, it seems as if the hard problem of consciousness will not be an easy problem to solve anytime soon. And while the depiction of AI in Ex Machina is certainly very good and interesting, I am still not firmly convinced that what Ava experienced was actually consciousness. She does not seem to experience empathy, and it seems as if even her escape was simply her fulfilling a duty that might even have been unintentionally implemented by her creator, and his desire to become something like God. The only evidence I can maybe vouch for is her experience with suffering, and even that is purely speculation. In the end, it is still unclear whether or not Ava has internal experiences, and maybe that is just how it will always be when it comes to AI. Thanks for watching.